They called him Shadow because they thought he'd fade away. By senior year, Malik Jackson was used to the sting of that nickname, but it still burned like acid every time it hit his ears. At Lincoln High, a concrete jungle of cliques and cruelty in a small Ohio town, Malik was the kid who never quite fit. His skin was too dark for the mostly white school, his clothes too worn for the rich kids, and his quiet intelligence too sharp for the jocks who ruled the halls. He was 17, lanky but strong, with eyes that held stories he'd never tell. Stories of nights spent studying under a flickering kitchen light, of his mother's tired smiles, of a father he barely knew, a man who existed more in myth than memory, a Green Beret who'd vanished into war zones before Malik could walk. It was a Tuesday in October, the kind of crisp fall day that should have felt hopeful but instead reeked of trouble. Malik was crossing the courtyard, head down, earbuds in, when the familiar jeer cut through his music.
Yo, Shadow.
Where you slinking off to? It was Ethan Caldwell, the school's golden boy quarterback, prom king, and unofficial dictator of Lincoln High's social order. His crew, a pack of sneering seniors, flanked him like hyenas. Malik kept walking, but Ethan's voice grew louder, sharper. What, you too good to talk? Or you just scared? The crowd laughed, and Malik's stomach twisted. He wasn't scared, not exactly. He was tired. Tired of the taunts, the shoves, the whispers about his kind not belonging. Tired of swallowing his rage because fighting back only made it worse. But today was different. Ethan stepped closer, his shadow falling over Malik like a storm cloud. You know why you don't belong here, right? He sneered, his voice dripping with venom. This ain't your place, boy. The word hit like a slap, and Malik froze. The courtyard went quiet, students pausing to watch the drama unfold. Malik's pulse pounded in his ears. He wanted to swing, to wipe that smirk off Ethan's face, but he knew better. One wrong move and he'd be the one expelled, the one blamed. He'd seen it happen to others like him, black kids who dared to push back and paid the price. Instead, Malik did something he hadn't done in years. He pulled out his phone, hands trembling, and dialed the number he'd memorized but never used. The line rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, deep, steady, like gravel over steel. Malik, it said. What's wrong? Malik swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. Dad, I need you. 30 minutes later, the courtyard was a powder keg. Ethan and his crew had escalated, circling Malik like sharks, their taunts growing uglier. Go back to where you came from, one spat. Another shoved Malik's shoulder, knocking his backpack to the ground. Books spilled out, pages fluttering in the breeze. A crowd had gathered, some cheering Ethan on, others silent but too scared to intervene. Malik stood his ground, jaw tight, eyes burning. He didn't know if his father would come. He didn't even know if the man still cared. But he'd made the call, and now all he could do was wait. Then, a low rumble cut through the noisy military Humvee, rolling into the school parking lot. Heads turned. Whispers spread. The vehicle stopped, and a man stepped out, his presence like a thunderclap. Colonel Marcus Jackson, 6 feet 4 inches of coiled muscle, clad in full green beret dress uniform, green coat, tan trousers, black beret tilted just so. Medals gleamed on his chest, each one a testament to battles fought and enemies vanquished. His eyes, the same deep brown as Malik's, scanned the courtyard with lethal precision. The crowd parted as he strode forward, his boots clicking on the pavement, each step radiating a quiet, terrifying authority. Ethan didn't see him coming. He was too busy shoving Malik again, laughing as he mocked. What? You gonna cry to your mommy now? Malik didn't flinch. He just stared past Ethan, and for the first time, a flicker of something dangerous crossed his face. Ethan turned, and his smirk vanished. Marcus Jackson loomed behind him, his gaze cold enough to freeze blood. "Step away from my son," he said, his voice low but carrying the weight of a grenade about to detonate. The courtyard was dead silent now. Ethan's crew backed up, their bravado crumbling. Ethan tried to laugh it off, but it came out weak. "Who the hell are you, man?" he stammered. Marcus didn't blink. "I'm the man who's been to places you can't imagine, doing things that'd make you wet your bed. And that's my boy you're messing with." He took a single step forward, and Ethan flinched, stumbling back. The crowd murmured, some in awe, others in fear. Malik stood taller, his chest swelling with something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You think you're tough, picking on someone who's alone?" he said, his eyes locked on Ethan. "You think that makes you a man? Let me tell you something about strength. Strength is carrying your brothers through hell when the bullets are flying. Strength is standing up when the world wants you to kneel. Strength is my son, coming to this school every day, dealing with cowards like you and still holding his head high." Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came. Marcus turned to the crowd, his voice rising just enough to carry. "Any of you who've laughed, who've watched, who've done nothing jury part of this. You let this happen. You think it's just words? Words build walls. Words start wars. And I've seen enough war to know where this road leads." He pointed at Malik. "This is my son. He's worth more than every one of you who stood by and let this happen." Malik's throat tightened. He'd spent years feeling invisible, like he was fighting a battle no one saw. Now, his father, a man he'd barely known, a legend who'd always been a phone call away but never close enough, was here, seeing him, fighting for him. The weight of it was almost too much. But the tension wasn't over. Ethan, humiliated in front of his peers, wasn't ready to back down. "This is our school," he spat, his voice shaking but defiant. "You can't just roll in here and scare us." Marcus's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Malik thought his father might actually break the kid in half. Instead, Marcus smiled a cold, dangerous smile. "You're right," he said. "I can't fight your battles forever, but I can teach my son how to fight his." He turned to Malik, pulling a small, worn notebook from his pocket. "This," he said, handing it to him, "is my field manual. Everything I learned in the berets: how to stand, how to fight, how to survive. You don't need me to fix this. You're stronger than you know." Malik took the notebook, his fingers brushing the cracked leather cover. It felt like a lifeline, a piece of his father he could carry. The bell rang, shattering the silence. The crowd dispersed, some whispering, others avoiding Marcus's gaze. Ethan and his crew slunk away, their power diminished, at least for today. Marcus put a hand on Malik's shoulder, his grip firm but warm. "I haven't been here," he said quietly, "and I'm sorry for that, but I'm here now, and we're gonna fix this together." Malik nodded, his voice caught in his throat. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like Shadow. He felt like Malik Jackson, son of a warrior, ready to fight his own war. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Malik kept the notebook in his backpack, its weight a constant reminder of his father's words. By lunch, the school was buzzing with the story of the Green Beret who'd shut down Ethan Caldwell. Some kids looked at Malik differently now, wary, curious, maybe even respectful. Others avoided him entirely. But the whispers didn't stop, and Malik knew this wasn't the end. Ethan's pride was wounded, and wounded animals were dangerous. That night, Malik sat at the kitchen table, the notebook open in front of him. His mother, Aisha, watched him from across the room, her eyes soft but worried. "You okay, baby?" she asked. Malik nodded, but his mind was racing. The notebook was filled with his father's handwriting notes on strategy, discipline, courage. One page stood out, a single sentence underlined. The strongest weapon is the truth you carry inside. Malik didn't know what it meant yet, but it felt important. The next day, Ethan was back, his ego bruised but his venom sharper. He cornered Malik in the hallway, his crew blocking the exits. "Your daddy ain't here now," he sneered. "What you gonna do, Shadow?" Malik's heart pounded, but he remembered his father's words. He stood straighter, meeting Ethan's gaze. "I'm not scared of you," he said, his voice steady. "And I'm not going anywhere." Ethan laughed, but it was forced. The hallway was crowded, eyes on them again. Malik felt the notebook in his backpack, a silent anchor. He didn't need to fight with fists. He'd fight with something stronger: his truth, his pride, his refusal to break. And somewhere, deep down, he knew his father was watching, ready to step in if the war got too heavy. But for now, this was Malik's battle. And he was ready. Malik's defiance in the hallway marked a shift, not just in him but in the air at Lincoln High. Ethan's laugh may have echoed, but it was hollow, and the crowd sensed it. For years, Ethan had ruled through fear, his taunts a currency that bought loyalty and silence. But now, with Malik standing tall, a crack appeared in that empire. The other students, some curious, some guilty, some just tired of the status quo, watched with new eyes. Malik wasn't just Shadow anymore. He was the kid whose father had rolled up in a Humvee, the kid who didn't flinch when Ethan pushed. And that made him dangerous in a way Ethan couldn't control. The next few days were a tightrope. Ethan didn't back off, but his attacks grew sneakier. Notes slipped into Malik's locker, slurs muttered under breath in class, an accidental elbow in gym that left Malik's ribs bruised. Each jab was calculated, designed to provoke without drawing attention. Malik felt the pressure building, a storm gathering inside him. He wanted to explode, to meet Ethan's cowardice with fists, but his father's notebook kept him grounded. One night, under the dim glow of his desk lamp, Malik read a passage Marcus had written. "Anger is a fire. Let it burn you and your ash. Channel it and you're a weapon." Malik closed the book, his jaw tight. He'd be a weapon, but not Ethan's way. His chance came at the school's fall assembly, a mandatory gathering in the auditorium where the principal droned about unity and school spirit. Malik sat near the back, his father's notebook tucked in his jacket. Ethan was a few rows ahead, surrounded by his crew, their laughter cutting through the principal's speech. Malik's eyes narrowed. He'd been invisible for too long, and invisibility was Ethan's power over him. Not anymore. When the principal opened the floor for student announcements, Malik stood. His legs shook, but his voice didn't. "I got something to say," he called out, loud enough to turn heads. The auditorium went quiet, a sea of faces staring, some confused, some expectant. Ethan turned, his smirk faltering. The principal, caught off guard, nodded. "Go ahead, Malik." Malik walked to the stage, each step heavier than the last. He faced the crowd, his heart hammering. "I'm tired," he started, his voice raw but steady. "Tired of being called names. Tired of being pushed around. Tired of people looking the other way because it's easier." He pulled the notebook from his jacket, holding it up. "My dad's a Green Beret. He taught me that real strength isn't about who you can hurt. It's about standing up, even when you're scared. Even when you're alone." The room was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Malik's eyes found Ethan's. "Some of you think it's okay to hate someone because they look different. You think it's just words, just jokes. But those words cut. They build walls. They make people feel like they don't belong." His voice cracked, but he pushed on. I belong here. I'm not going anywhere. And if you've got a problem with that, say it to my face. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some students clapped, hesitant at first, then louder. Others shifted uncomfortably, their guilt exposed. Ethan's face was stone, but his crew looked uneasy, their loyalty wavering. The principal stepped forward, flustered. "Thank you, Malik. That was powerful. Let's all reflect on unity and respect." But the words felt empty compared to Malik's raw truth. After the assembly, the school was a battleground of whispers. Some kids approached Malik, offering quiet support. A girl from his history class, Sarah, said, "I didn't know it was that bad. I'm sorry." Others kept their distance, Ethan's influence still strong. But Malik felt lighter, like he'd shed a weight he'd carried for years. His truth was out and it was armor. Ethan, though, wasn't done. Humiliated by Malik's speech, he planned his revenge. That Friday, during lunch, he and his crew ambushed Malik in the parking lot. It was quick. Two of Ethan's friends grabbed Malik's arms while Ethan swung, his fist connecting with Malik's jaw. Pain exploded and Malik hit the ground, tasting blood. Ethan leaned over him, his voice low. "You think you're tough now? You're nothing." He kicked Malik's ribs, hard, before his crew pulled him away, laughing as they disappeared into the crowd. Malik lay there, gasping, the world spinning. A few students watched from a distance, but no one helped. He dragged himself to his feet, wincing, and stumbled to the bathroom to clean up. In the mirror, his swollen jaw stared back, but his eyes burned with something new resolve. Ethan wanted a war. Malik would give him one, but not with fists. He'd fight smarter. That night, Malik called his father. Marcus answered on the first ring. "What happened?" he asked, his voice sharp. Malik told him everything: the assembly, the attack, the silence of the crowd. Marcus listened, his silence heavy. When Malik finished, Marcus said, "I'm coming back, but you need to decide how you want to handle this. You're not a kid anymore. You're a man. What's your move?" Malik thought about the notebook, about his father's words on truth and strength. "I want to expose him," he said. "Not just Ethan, but the whole system that lets him get away with it." Marcus's voice softened. "That's my boy. I'll be there tomorrow. We'll do this together." The next morning, Marcus arrived at Lincoln High, this time in civilian clothes, a black jacket and jeans, but no less intimidating. He and Malik met with the principal, Ms. Harper, a well-meaning but overwhelmed woman who'd turned a blind eye to Ethan's antics for years. Malik laid out his case. The years of bullying, the racial slurs, the attack in the parking lot. He showed her photos of his bruises, taken the night before. Marcus added weight, his voice calm but unyielding. "This isn't just about my son. It's about every kid who's been targeted and ignored. You let this go on, you're complicit." Ms. Harper paled, stammering about school policies and due process. Marcus leaned forward. "Due process didn't stop my son from getting jumped. You've got a choice: handle this or I take it higher. And trust me, I know people who'll listen." The threat hung in the air, quiet but real. By Monday, the school was in upheaval. Ethan and his crew were suspended pending an investigation. Rumors swirled. Some said Ethan's college football scholarship was at risk. Others that his parents were furious. Malik's bruises were healing, but the real victory was the shift in the school's culture. Students started talking openly about bullying, about the slurs they'd heard or ignored. Sarah and a few others started a petition for a diversity council, and to everyone's surprise, it gained traction. But Malik knew the fight wasn't over. Ethan's suspension ended, and he returned to school quieter but no less dangerous. One day, in the cafeteria, he approached Malik, his eyes cold. "You think you won?" he said, his voice low. This isn't over. Malik met his gaze, unflinching. Maybe not, but I'm not scared of you anymore. Weeks passed, and the tension eased, but the scars remained. Malik kept his father's notebook close, its pages a guide through the chaos. Marcus stayed in town longer than planned, teaching Malik not just how to fight, but how to live with purpose, with pride. One night, over dinner, Marcus said, I wasn't there for you before. I can't change that. But I see you now, Malik. You're stronger than I ever was. The school year ended with a quiet victory. Malik graduated, his grades strong enough for a scholarship to Ohio State. At the ceremony, Marcus sat in the front row, his green beret uniform replaced by a proud smile. Ethan was there too, his future uncertain, his power diminished. The crowd cheered for Malik, not just for his diploma, but for what he'd become, a symbol of resilience, a voice for those who'd been silenced. In his valedictorian speech, Malik spoke of truth, of courage, of the power to change. We all have a choice, he said, to build walls or tear them down, to hate or to heal. I choose to heal. The crowd stood, applauding, and Malik felt his father's hand on his shoulder, a silent promise that he'd never fight alone again. The story of Malik Jackson spread beyond Lincoln High, a reminder that one voice, backed by truth and love, could shift a community. But it also left questions: where does justice end and revenge begin? How do we heal a society fractured by hate? Share your thoughts. What's right, what's wrong, and how do we bridge the divide?